Here's a custom WWF-style pay-per-view (PPV) event concept using characters from WWF Warzone and your 4 custom wrestlers. WWF presents Chaos Rising. Venue, Madison Square Garden, New York City. Theme, dark, gritty tone with intense rivalries and brutal brawls. Tagline, when the darkness falls, chaos rises. Main card. 1. Opening match, Hardcore Rules Mankind vs. Dale. Dale brings military precision and aggression, trying to dominate with brutal power. Mankind uses his unpredictable, sadistic style. Winner, Dale, after using a steel chair ambush post-mandible claw escape. 2. Tag team match. The New Age Outlaws vs. Ghost and Steven the Menace. Fast-paced with Ghost's MMA technique and Steven's striking style blending to surprise the veteran tag team. Winner, Ghost and Steven the Menace, via knockout by Ghost on Road Dogg. 3. Singles match. Brawlers Showcase, Ken Shamrock versus King Jeremy Snaker. Heel. Snaker enters with dark robes and mind games, trying to get into Shamrock's head. A hard-hitting match with gothic theatrics. Winner, King Jeremy Snaker, after a low blow behind the ref's back and a DDT onto a chair. Tar. 4. Intercontinental Championship Triple Threat. Triple H versus Owen Hart versus Steven the Menace. Steven gets a big chance after his earlier tag team win. High energy, technical, and striking focused match. Winner, Triple H, retains by pinning Owen after pedigree, while Steven is recovering outside. Tash 5, co-main event, grudge match, submission only, Ghost versus Dale. A heated rivalry culminates in this intense, brutal contest. Dale targets limbs, Ghost relies on MMA holds. Winner Ghost, armbar tap out after reversing a powerbomb into a triangle choke. 6, main event, no holds barred, Darkness Reigns match, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus King Jeremy Snaker. The gothic heel Snaker has been haunting Austin for weeks. Austin brings a beer-soaked fury. Snaker brings eerie resilience and pain tolerance. Winner, Stone Cold Steve Austin, after 3 stunners, refusing to stay down. Postscript. As the show ends, the lights cut out. A blood-red spotlight illuminates the ramp as Snaker sits up Undertaker style, smirking. Fade to black. 8. Let's build the next WWF PPV, following up on Chaos Rising, continuing storylines and setting up new rivalries. WWF presents Aftershock. Venue, United Center, Chicago IL. Theme, Fallout from the Chaos, Revenge, Betrayal, and Survival. Tagline, the dust has settled, the war begins. Main card, 1. Opening match, Tag Team Turmoil. Dale and Ken Shamrock versus Ghost and Al Snow. Dale wants revenge on Ghost, but is forced into an uneasy alliance with Shamrock. Winner, Ghost and Al Snow. Ghost pins Dale after a high knee roundhouse combo. 2. Singles match, Steven the Menace versus D'Lo Brown. Steven continues his rise, facing D'Lo in a striking versus unorthodox style match. Winner, Steven the Menace, flying knee strike for the pin. Hardcore match, Manka versus Road Dogg versus Billy Gunn versus Val Venus. Weapons galore. Chairs, tables, trash cans, carnage everywhere. Winner, Mankind, mandible claw on Val Venus with barbed wire wrapped around his hand. At 4, grudge match, Dark Justice, King Jeremy Snaker versus The Undertaker. A battle of dark personas. Undertaker has had enough of Snaker's rituals and threats. Winner, King Jeremy Snaker. Undertaker gets mysteriously dragged under the ring during a tombstone attempt. 5, Intercontinental Championship match, Triple H versus Steven the Menace. Steven earns another shot, this time one-on-one. Winner, Triple H, retains after interference from Dale, beginning a new feud. 6, co-main event, MMA rules match, Ghost versus Shamrock. A pure technical contest, no ropes, just mat and strikes. Winner Ghost, rear naked choke after 10 minutes of stiff grappling. 7, main event, steel cage match, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus King Jeremy Snaker, ritual-themed steel cage. Austin wants to end Snaker's reign of psychological terror. Winner, Stone Cold, escapes cage after a bloodied battle, hitting a cage door stunner mid-climb. Post-show twist. As Austin celebrates on top of the cage, Snaker sits up inside the ring again. But this time, the lights go fully red, and Dale walks to the ring slowly with a burning flag. The unholy alliance begins. Perfect. Let's close out this storyline arc with a dark, high-stakes finale. WWF presents Blood Legacy. Venue, Staples Center, Los Angeles, CA. Theme, the end of a dark era. Betrayals are exposed, legacies are sealed. Tagline, when blood runs cold, only the strongest remain. Main card, one opening match, tag team grudge, Steven the Menace and Al Snow versus Dale and D'Lo Brown. Steven seeks payback after Dale cost him the IC title. Winner, Steven and Al. Steven pins D'Lo after a brutal combo finisher. 2. Singles match, Ken Shamrock versus Ghost, submission only. A rematch with respect, but competitive fire. Winner, Ghost. Heel hook tap out after a 12-minute technical war. 3. Hardcore Championship Open Challenge. Mankind versus surprise entrant Gangrel. 2 twisted minds clash in a bloody gothic brawl. Winner, Mankind, wins after pulling out thumbtacks for a final slam. 4. Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way. Triple H versus Steven the Menace versus Val Venis versus Road Dogg. Steven gets one last shot, but odds are stacked. Winner, Steven the Menace, new champion, rolling elbow to Road Dogg. 5. The Omen match, First Blood. King Jeremy Snaker versus The Undertaker. Their saga climaxes. The lights are low. The weapons are pre-placed. No rules, just blood. The Undertaker. Snaker is busted open with his own chain-wrapped fist after Taker no-sells 2 chair shots. 6. Co-main event military mayhem match, Falls Count Anywhere. Dale versus Ghost. The war ends here. They brawl backstage, through a parking lot, and back to the ring. Winner, Ghost. Submission using a chain-assisted choke on a crashed SUV hood. 7. Main event, WWF Championship. Hell in a Cell, Stone Cold Steve Austin, champion versus King Jeremy Snaker. The final chapter. If Snaker loses, he's banished from WWF. Winner, Stone Cold, after a brutal fight including a stunner on top of the cell, followed by a beer can smash pin. Post-show finale. The lights go out. Snaker is dragged away by druids. Dale watches coldly from the ramp. Austin holds the belt high, and Steven the Menace walks out with the Intercontinental title. The next generation is rising. Awesome. With King Jeremy Snaker gone and new stars rising, it's time to kick off a new era in the aftermath of Blood Legacy. WWF presents New Order. Venue Scotiabank Arena, Toronto, Canada. Theme, a changing of the guard, fresh rivalries and power shifts. Tagline, the future takes the throne. Main card, opening match, breakout bout. Steven the Menace, Intercontinental Champion versus X-Pac. Steven defends against a high-speed veteran to prove he's a true fighting champion. Winner, Steven the Menace, after countering the X-Factor into a brutal high knee. 2. Tag team match, Dark Alliance debut. Dale and Gangrel versus the Hardy Boys. Dale finds a new dark partner after Snaker's exile. Winner, Dale and Gangrel, after Dale powerbombs Jeff onto the barricade mid-dive. Hardcore chaos match. Mankind versus Raven versus Al Snow versus a mad scramble with no rules. Winner, Raven, sneaks in and DDTs Mankind on a trash can lid for the win. 4. Grudge match. Submission versus KO. Ghost versus Ken Shamrock. Tied 1-1. Both fighters go for the final win. MMA style KO or submission only. Winner, Ghost, after surviving an ankle lock and delivering a brutal spinning back elbow. 5. Number 1 contenders match. Triple H versus The Undertaker. Both want a shot at Austin, but only one earns it. Winner, The Undertaker, chokeslam through the announce table after countering the pedigree. 6. Co-main event, interpromotional challenge. Steven the Menace and Ghost versus Dale and Raven. Tensions between champions and dark forces boil over. Winner, Dale and Raven. Dale steals the pin after Raven's DDT on Ghost. 7. Main event, WWF Championship match. Stone Cold Steve Austin, champion, versus The Rock. The Rock returns to reclaim his spot as top guy. Winner, Stone Cold. Stunner reversal into another stunner after a wild 20-minute match. Post-show moment. As Austin celebrates, Dale steps out onto the ramp, staring down the champ, no words. Just the look of a soldier planning a war. Perfect. Now the war between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dale takes center stage. Let's escalate this feud in a high-stakes, militarized showdown. WWF presents Ground Zero. Venue, Alamodome, San Antonio TX. Theme, a war zone of egos and brutality. Tagline, when it all explodes, who walks out? Main card. 1. Opening match, Intercontinental Championship. Steven the Menace versus Val Venis. Steven defends against a crafty veteran looking to exploit his aggression. Winner, Steven the Menace, knee strike counter to money shot. 2. Hardcore tag team match, Mankind and Al Snow versus Raven and Gangrel. Pure chaos with shopping carts, kendo sticks, and blood. Winner, Raven and Gangrel. Raven effect DDT through a table on L. 3. Singles match, Ghost versus D'Lo Brown. D'Lo tries to slow Ghost's momentum before he reaches world title territory. Winner, Ghost, triangle choke after ducking the sky high. Tash/4, women's showcase match. New division, Lita versus Jacqueline versus Luna Vachon. First ever showcase of WWF's rising women's division. Lita, twist of fate to Luna. 5. Grudge match, no disqualification, Triple H versus The Undertaker. After losing his title shot, Triple H blames Taker. This one's personal. Winner, The Undertaker, tombstone on the steel steps. 6. Co-main event tag team showcase, Ghost and Steven the Menace versus Dale and Gangrel. Ghost and Steven reluctantly team again to take on the new Dark Military faction. Winner, Dale and Gangrel. Dale hits Steven with the chain-wrapped fist after a fake handshake. Main event, Combat Zone match for the WWF Championship. Stone Cold Steve Austin, champion, versus Dale. Special rules, barbed wire ropes, military weapons allowed around the ring, no DQ, no countouts. Austin comes to fight, Dale comes to conquer, blood is spilled, tables shattered. Winner, Stone Cold Steve Austin, after stunner onto a crate of spent ammo canisters. Post-show shock, as Austin celebrates, the Titantron flickers. A gothic figure in a dark cloak appears. King Jeremy Snaker has returned, whispering, "You thought the blood was buried, but blood never dies." Let's go. The return of King Jeremy Snaker throws the WWF into full-blown chaos. Now with Dale still lurking and Austin at the top, the battlefield shifts from blood to power, vengeance, and darkness. WWF presents Trinity of Violence. Venue, TD Garden, Boston, MA. Theme, a three-way war between Hell, Honor, and Rebellion. Tagline, 3 forces, 1 fate. 1. Opening match, Intercontinental Championship. Steven the Menace versus Chris Jericho. Jericho makes his PPV debut, targeting the new era's top mid-carder. Winner, Steven the Menace. Narrow win via striking combo after surviving the walls of Jericho. Top 2. Tag team match, women's division. Lita and Jacqueline versus Luna Vachon and Ivory. Tension builds in the new division as alliances form. Winners, Lita and Jacqueline. Lita hits a moonsault on Ivory for the win. 3. Death row match, elimination style. Raven versus Mankind versus Gangrel versus Al Snow. Weapons surround the ring. Elimination via pinfall, submission, or being thrown through a flaming table. Winner, Raven, last eliminates Mankind with a fire extinguisher-assisted DDT through a flaming table. Pop 4, Ghost versus Kane, first time ever. Ghost tests himself against a monster. Pure fight, no frills. Winner, Ghost, after countering the chokeslam into a flying armbar. Top 5, Dale versus The Undertaker, military rules match. Rules, 20-minute time limit. Match ends via knockout or ref stoppage. A hard-hitting, brutal affair where Dale tries to put down the dead man. Winner, Dale. Ref stoppage after repeated ground and pound elbows. Taker doesn't get up. 6. Co-main event, Tag Chaos. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Ghost versus Dale and King Jeremy Snaker. Chaos erupts before the triple threat. Allies are unreliable. Winners, Dale and Snaker. After Snaker turns Dale mid-match, hits Austin with a black mist, then tags Dale in for the pin. 7. Main event announcement, signed during the show. Triple threat for WWF Championship, next PPV. Stone Cold Steve Austin, champion, versus Dale versus King Jeremy Snaker. A contract signing ends the night. Austin flips the table. Dale refuses to shake hands. Snaker laughs, slicing his palm and smearing blood on the contract. Let's deliver the epic climax to the Austin-Dale-Snaker War, a match carved in blood, hatred, and legacy. WWF presents Throne of Violence. Venue, Soldier Field, Chicago, IL. Theme, finality. No escape, no allies, no mercy. Tagline, only one walks away with the crown. Special match type, Trinity Hell Cell. A 3-level steel structure. Bottom is a Hell in a Cell. Mid-level is weapons only. Top level is steel grates with barbed wire lining. Victory by pinfall or submission on the top level only. Main card. 1. Opening match. Intercontinental Championship. Stephen the Menace, champion versus Eddie Guerrero. Fast-paced, high-skill match. Guerrero targets Stephen's leg, trying to ground the striker. Winner, Stephen the Menace, after reversing the frog splash into a roll-up. 2. Women's Championship Tournament Final. New title debuts, Lita versus Luna Vachon. Luna brutalizes Lita early, but Lita rallies with resilience and high-flying spots. Winner, Lita, moonsault for the win, becomes inaugural WWF Women's Champion. 3. Grudge match, casket match. The Undertaker versus Raven. Raven claims to be darker than death. Taker accepts the challenge. Winner, The Undertaker, tombstone on the ramp, then slams the casket shut. 4. Submission showdown dream match. Ghost versus Bret the Hitman Hart. Respectful, pure technical clinic. Winner, Ghost, after surviving the sharpshooter and locking in a rear naked choke. 5. Dale versus Stephen the Menace non-title match. Dale attacks Stephen after Stephen mocks him in a pre-taped segment. Pure fight. Winner, Dale. Tactical slam through the announce table. 6. Co-main event tag team table match. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker versus King Jeremy Snaker and Gangrel. Pure build-up to the main event. Winners Austinaker, stunner on Gangrel through a table. Number 7. Main event, Trinity Hell Cell. Stone Cold Steve Austin, UF champion, versus Dale versus King Jeremy Snaker. Structure. Bottom, standard Hell in a Cell with chains and chairs. Middle, weapons cage, sledgehammers, pipes, barbed bats. Top, steel grate ring with barbed wire ropes. Pin must happen here. Key moments. Dale suplexes Austin through the second floor. Snaker summons Druids mid-match, but Ghost fights them off. Austin and Dale bleed heavily. Final sequence. Austin counters Snaker's DDT with a super stunner on the top grate, pinning him after fighting off Dale one last time. Winner, Stone Cold Steve Austin, still WWF champion. Final scene. Austin stands on top of the cell, bleeding but holding the belt. Fire surrounds the ring. Dale sits up below, swearing revenge. Snaker is carried out by Druids, perhaps for the last time. Let's launch a new arc after the chaos of Throne of Violence. With the old war fading and Stephen the Menace and Ghost rising, it's time to shift to a power struggle between generations and ideologies. WF presents Reckoning. Venue, Wells Fargo Center, Philadelphia, PA. Theme, the rise of a new era, and the veterans refusing to let go. Tagline, respect isn't given, it's taken. Key storyline shift. Stephen the Menace begins declaring himself the true future face of WWF. Stone Cold shrugs him off, but Stephen costs Austin a match. Ghost remains silent until challenged. A new faction begins to form under Stephen. The Vanguard, Stephen, Raven, D'Lo Brown, and a redebuting repackaged heel, Chris Jericho. Main card, 1. Opening match, Vanguard debut. Raven and D'Lo Brown versus Al Snow and Hardcore Holly. The Vanguard establishes dominance. Winners, Raven and D-Lee plus Frog Splash combo, Tattoo. Women's Championship match, Lita, high energy, back and forth action. Winner retains via Twist of Fate. 3. Hardcore Gauntlet, Mankind versus Gangrel versus Billy Gunn versus Velvenis. Weapons, eliminations, chaos. Winner Mankind, last eliminates Gangrel with a pile driver on thumbtacks. 4. Dale versus Ghost grudge match. After their unresolved history, Dale blames Ghost for burying the war too soon. Winner, Ghost, via technical KO triangle choke, refuses to release immediately. 5. Intercontinental Championship, Stephen the Menace champion versus Chris Jericho. Jericho debuts as part of Vanguard, playing mind games. Stephen retains, using the ropes after a ref distraction. 6. Co-main event, Legacy Tag Match, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker versus Stephen the Menace and Dale. 2 generations collide in a chaotic brawl. Winners, Austin and Taker. Austin pins Dale after a stunner. Stephen walks away mid-match, abandoning his partner. 7. Main event announcement, in-ring segment. Next PPV, Stone Cold versus Stephen the Menace, non-title match. Stipulation, if Stephen wins, he gets a WWF title shot at SummerSlam. If he loses, he can't challenge for a year. Stephen slaps Austin and says, "Your time's up. It's my reckoning." Let's turn up the heat. It's time for the defining match between Stone Cold and Steven the Menace. WWF presents No Mercy. Venue, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas NV theme, career-altering consequences, no second chances. Tagline, one rises, one breaks. Main stipulation match, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Steven the Menace, I Quit match. If Steven wins, he gets a WWF Championship match at SummerSlam. If he loses, he forfeits all title opportunities for 1 year. Main card, 1 opening match, Tag Team Turmoil. Hardy Boys versus D'Lo Brown and Raven versus Al Snow and Hardcore Holly. Winners earn a tag title shot next PPV. Winners, the Hardy Boys, Twist of Fate Senton combo on Raven. 2. Women's Championship, Lita versus Luna Vachon. A brutal brawl where Luna nearly ends Lita's streak. Winner, Lita, retains after a second rope moonsault. 3. Dale versus Kane. Dale wants to reassert his dominance after being betrayed at Reckoning. Winner, Dale, tactical slam through steel steps. 4. Ghost versus Bret Hart 2, Respect rematch. More intensity, higher stakes, technical masterpiece. Winner, Ghost, barely escapes with a flash triangle roll-up. 5. Intercontinental Championship, Steven the Menace champion versus Mankind. Steven's final defense before the main event. Winner, Steven, knee strike out of nowhere, retains, walks out bloodied. 6. Co-main event, Tag Chaos, Stone Cold and Ghost versus Dale and Chris Jericho. Tensions explode in a wild pre-main event tag match. Winners, Dale and Jericho. Dale pins Ghost with a roll-up after Jericho low blows Austin. 7. Main event I Quit match, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Steven the Menace. 25-minute war, chairs, chain-wrapped fists, and pure emotion. Steven targets Austin's knee with relentless strikes. Austin refuses to quit even after passing out. Steven, frustrated, grabs barbed wire. Final moment. Austin counters with a desperate stunner, then beats Steven with the wire until he finally screams, I quit! Winner, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Post-show scene. As Austin limps away, the Vanguard, Jericho, Raven D'Lo, surrounds Steven. Jericho whispers, you failed. There's no room for weakness. They walk out, leaving Steven behind. Let's shift the spotlight to the aftermath of betrayal and the rise of a new contender. With Steven left behind by the Vanguard and Stone Cold still holding the gold, the field opens for Dale to make his move, and Steven to begin his fall or rebirth. WWF presents Ascension. Venue, Madison Square Garden, New York City. Theme, Rise or Fall, everyone climbs, but only one survives the summit. Tagline, your next breath could be your last shot. Main card, 1. Opening match, Redemption Challenge. Steven the Menace versus D'Lo Brown. Steven demands a match against the man who walked out on him. Winner, Steven, vicious finish after shouting, you made me, and hitting 3 knee strikes in a row. 2. Women's #1 contender match, Triple Threat. Jacqueline versus Ivory versus Luna Vachon. Winner faces Lita at the next PPV. Winner, Luna steals the pin on Ivory. 3. Hardcore Championship, Fatal 4-Way. Mankind versus Al Snow versus Gangrel versus Raven. Pure chaos, tables, chairs, tacks, and blood. Winner, Raven, using the ropes to pin Mankind with a steel pipe shot. Hat 4, Ghost versus Chris Jericho, technical masterclass. Jericho mocks Ghost as too honorable to survive. Ghost stays calm and counters every trick. Winner, Ghost, rear naked choke after reversing the walls of Jericho. 5. Tag Team Championship match, the Hardy Boys versus the New Age Outlaws. Classic tag action with high risk and brawling. Winners, Hardy Boys, retain after Swanton Bomb on Billy Gunn. 6. #1 contender match, Last Man Standing. Dale versus The Undertaker. A brutal showdown to determine who faces Austin at SummerSlam. Winner, Taker can't answer the 10 count after being slammed through the stage. 7. Main event, WWF Championship, non-title exhibition. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Ghost. Respect-based main event. Ghost earns this spot after a dominant streak. Technical fight versus brawler intensity. Winner, no contest. Dale interferes, attacking both men with a lead pipe. Final moment. Dale grabs the WF title and screams, you can send ghosts, legends, or gods. I'm coming for all of you at SummerSlam. Meanwhile, Steven watches from the rafters. Alone, bitter and whispering, they forgot me. Time to make them remember. Time to unleash WWF SummerSlam, the biggest stage of the summer. The war between generations erupts. Stone Cold defends the gold, Dale brings destruction, Steven teeters on the edge, and Ghost rises as the new moral center. WF SummerSlam venue, Ford Field, Detroit, My. Theme, Legacy versus Power versus Rebirth. Tagline, this summer, everything burns. Main feuds, Stone Cold versus Dale. Power and war collide for the WWF Championship. Ghost versus Jericho. Skill versus ego in a purist's dream match. Steven's spiral, disrespected, unstable, and unpredictable. Lita versus Luna. Champion versus unhinged predator. Main card, 1. Opening match, Intercontinental Championship. Steven the Menace, champion versus Edge. Edge returns from injury and nearly takes Steven down. Winner, heel tactics, low blow plus exposed knee strike. Post-match, Steven attacks Edge with a chair, screaming, "You still overlook me?" 2. Women's Championship, Lita, Luna Vachon. Luna dominates early, but Lita fights back with aerial speed. Winner, Lita, retains after a moonsault reversal from Luna's superplex attempt. Raven versus Mankind, falls count anywhere. Final chapter in their brutal hardcore rivalry. Winner, DDT off the ramp through a table of barbed wire. 4. Tag Team Championship, ladder match, Hardy Boys, champions versus New Age Outlaws, classic chaos and high spots. Winners, Hardy Boys, Jeff pulls the belts after a swanton off the ladder onto Road Dogg. 5. Grudge match, Ghost versus Chris Jericho, technical masterpiece, counters, psychology, and pride. Winner, Ghost, rolls out of the walls and locks in a triangle choke. Post-match, Jericho refuses the handshake, but doesn't attack. 6. No holds barred. The Undertaker versus Dale. Not booked originally, but after Dale jumped Austin last week, Taker demanded this match before the title bout. Winner, no contest. Both men brawl into the crowd and disappear backstage. Dale returns, bleeding, but smiling. 7. Main event, WWF Championship, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Dale enters limping but laughing. Austin is furious and focused. Brutal brawl, finishers kicked out of, weapons involved. Final moment, as Austin lines up a chair shot, the lights go out. Steven the Menace appears, clocking both men with the Intercontinental belt. Result, no contest post-show ending. Steven stands on the ramp, arms wide, holding both titles. He screams, "If I can't get the spotlight, I'll burn it down." Fade to black. Let's raise the stakes. After SummerSlam ended in chaos, WWF needs order, but it gets fire. Title legitimacy is questioned. Steven holds the IC title hostage, and Dale and Austin want blood. Venue, United Center, Chicago IL. Theme, Power Vacuum. No champion, no peace. Tagline, everyone breaks. The question is when. WWF president declares the WWF Championship vacant due to SummerSlam's inconclusive finish. A triple threat match is announced for the main event. Stone Cold versus Dale versus Steven the Menace. Winner becomes undisputed WWF champion. # main card. 1. Opening match, Intercontinental Contenders match. Edge versus Chris Jericho versus D'Lo Brown. Winner gets a shot at Steven's IC title next PPV. Winner, Edge. Edgecution on Jericho, pinfall. 2. Hardcore tag match, Mankind and Al Snow versus Raven and Gangrel. Wild, ringside heavy brawl. Winners, Raven and Gangrel DT plus spike combo on Al Snow. 3. Women's Division Showcase tag match. Lita and Jacqueline. Luna's erratic behavior causes miscommunication. Winners, Lita and Jacqueline. Post-match, Luna attacks Ivory, snapping. 4. Ghost versus Bret Hart 3 submission only. Respect Trilogy ends here. Winner, Ghost. After 18 minutes, he reverses a sharpshooter into an inverted ankle lock. 5. Intercontinental Championship, non-sanctioned match. Steven the Menace, champion versus The Undertaker. Taker demands a fight after Steven's SummerSlam interference. Winner, no contest. Match descends into a blackout brawl as Dale attacks both men mid-match. 6. Main event, vacant WWF Championship. Stone Cold versus Dale versus Steven the Menace. All 3 men bloodied. Dale dominates early. Austin hits a double stunner. Steven low blows Austin, then pins Dale after smashing him through exposed turnbuckles. Winner, Steven the Menace, new WWF champion. Post-show chaos. Steven clutches both titles. Lights flicker. Ghost steps onto the stage. No words, just a stare. Summer of Fire ends. The era of menace begins.